Welcome back to another episode of Basic Baking on the Scran Line. Continuing on with our cake videos, today I'm going to show you how to make my vanilla cake. My vanilla cake is really delicious. It's a little bit more on the dense side compared to other cake recipes, but it's really moist and it's really easy to make as well. Now, what's great about this cake recipe is that it can be adapted in so many different ways. You can color it, flavor it, like you can add so many different things to it. You can add berries. It's just a really great basic recipe so that you can kind of adapt it to meet your needs. So like if you're making a birthday cake, you can add funfetti sprinkles to the batter, or if you want to make something for Mother's Day, you can add some raspberries into the batter and bake it. It's a really great recipe for that reason. Before we get stuck into today's recipe, just a quick note. What I'm going to be showing you today is one batch of cake. But to make the 6-layered 8-inch cake that I'm going to show you in this video, you're going to need to double the recipe and make 2 batches of cake. The reason I make one batch on screen is because most people don't have bowls big enough at home to make 2 batches at once. And that's me included. I actually make 2 separate batches so that I can end up with that 6-layered cake. Let's begin with the actual cake recipe. Now, it's really easy. We're going to be adding some flour to a large mixing bowl, along with some sugar. We're going to be adding some baking powder and salt in there, and we're going to mix this until everything is really well combined. Today, I'm going to be using a hand mixer to mix this cake recipe, but you can make this using a stand mixer as well. We are going to be adding our butter next. You're going to mix that until you reach a crumbly sand-like texture. Now guys, if you're wondering why I don't cream my butter and sugar together and do the creaming method, it's because I use the reverse creaming method. And if you want to learn more about why I use that, I actually explained it all in my vanilla cupcake recipe video. So to learn more about the reverse creaming method and why I use it, head on over and watch that video. I think it's up there. Click up there or up there, I don't know where it is, and you can learn more about that. Once everything is really well combined and you've reached like a crumbly sand-like texture, we're ready to add the rest of our wet ingredients. So you want to add your eggs, some milk, make sure again that that's at room temperature. Then you're going to add some oil, some Greek yogurt. Now the Greek yogurt is not in there for flavor. You won't taste it at all because it's really not that much. It's in there because it adds moisture to the cake. Now if you're not a fan of Greek yogurt, even though you can't taste it or you don't have Greek yogurt at home, you can use sour cream in its place. Can you leave it out completely? Yes you can, but as an example, we actually used to add sour cream into our vanilla batter because we baked really early in the morning, and by the time the last customer came at the end of the day, because we added that sour cream in there, the cupcake was still really moist and delicious for that last customer. So it's all about making a really moist cake. You're going to add some vanilla extract in there as well, and you're going to mix everything until it's really well combined. Once it all looks like it's come together, you want to stop mixing, scrape down the bowl, because when you use a hand mixer or a stand mixer, you never properly get the bottom of the bowl. So always scrape the bowl with a spatula, and that way you make sure everything is mixed in properly, and then you're going to mix for a final 30 seconds. You don't want to overmix your batter because then you risk ending up with a tough cake, not a nice soft delicate cake. Now I've actually prepared 3 8-inch cake tins with some oil spray and lined the bottom with baking paper. I've actually made a separate video for you guys teaching you how I prepare my baking tins. So lots of different types of baking tins so that way when you bake your cakes you get perfect results and you don't have too much trouble getting them out of the cake tins. You're going to bake these cakes and let them cool down completely. Now, you want to let them cool down completely and chill in the fridge for about 4 to 5 hours. I actually chill my cakes overnight, and then the next day I actually crumb coat and fill my cakes. So, once your cakes are chilled, and mine have been chilling overnight, I am going to trim the tops of my cake. You want to get them nice and level so that way you get nice level cake layers and your cake stacks nice and evenly. So I'm going to be using a serrated knife to trim the top of my cake while it's in the cake tin, and then I'm going to flip the cake tin over. It will come out really easy because we've oiled and baking papered it. We're going to peel that baking paper away. Today I'm going to be using a cake leveler to slice my cake in half, but if you don't have one of these, you can use a serrated knife. Once you've sliced each of your 3 cakes in half, you'll end up with 6 layers of cake. I'm going to be using a cake turntable to decorate my cake. Using a cake turntable is, well, it makes decorating your cakes much easier. So as you're spreading the frosting around your cake, you're just spinning the table rather than having to walk around your cake and decorate it. So if you're a cake decorator or you're wanting to get into cake decorating, I would really recommend getting one of these. The one that I have is a heavy duty metal one, and it cost me $100, which is a bit on the expensive side, but you can get cheaper ones which are made of plastic and they do essentially the same thing. I'm going to be using a grip mat on top of my cake turntable, and then I'm going to be adding a cake board on top of that. I'm using a 10-inch cake board, and I'm using a thick one. And the reason I use the thick ones is because as you're transferring your cake in and out of the fridge, they don't bend, so it means that your cake stays nice and stable and straight. You're going to add a dab of buttercream on top. Now today I'm using my American buttercream frosting. I'm going to add a dab of that on top of my cake board and then spread it around using an offset spatula. Another tool that I would recommend having if you want to decorate cakes is an offset spatula. Now it's got a slight bend in it, which means as you're spreading frosting, there's low risk of your hands touching your cake. So that way you don't ruin your beautiful smooth cake. I would also recommend having a cake or bench scraper to get that nice smooth edge, and I'm going to show you how to get that nice smooth edge in a second. Add your first layer of cake on top and press it down onto the frosting so it sticks onto the cake board. We're going to frost a ring of frosting around the cake and then fill it in with some more frosting. I'm going to use my offset spatula to spin my cake turntable and even off that frosting so that it's nice and flat and even before I add the next layer of cake. You want to repeat doing that until you've used all 6 layers of cake. Once you have, we're going to move on to the crumb coat. Now the crumb coat is all about trapping the crumbs, the cake crumbs, in the first layer of frosting so they don't show up on the final layer of frosting. So now that we've filled our cake, we're going to add some frosting around the side of our cake, and on top we're going to use our offset spatula to spread it around nice and neat. Now, you don't have to get it perfect, but I'm a perfectionist, so I like to make it look really neat. So I actually use the cake scraper to go around the cake after I've spread it with the offset spatula, and then I use it on top as well. Once you've got that looking as neat as you like, you're going to pop it in the fridge, and I actually chill mine overnight as well. Now, we actually baked our cake yesterday, if you're doing it the way that I do. And so you're probably thinking, well, Nick, it's already been in the fridge overnight. Are we going to put it in the fridge again overnight? That means that the cake is 2 days old. Well, there's no risk of the cake drying out in the fridge, even though you made it 2 days ago technically, because once you've added that frosting around that crumb coat, you're actually sealing in the moisture in the cake, and it actually goes more moist the second night. So once you've got that crumb coat, chill it in the fridge 4 to 5 hours at least, or overnight like I do. Our cake has been chilling in the fridge overnight and we are ready to decorate it. So we're gonna add our final layer of frosting. I am switching over to my Swiss meringue buttercream frosting. This is the frosting that I use to get my nice glossy, smooth cake edges and those nice straight cake edges on top of my cakes. You can use American buttercream frosting, but the issue that I sometimes run into with American buttercream frosting is that because my cake has been chilling in the fridge overnight, when I add that final layer of frosting over on the top, the frosting can chill really quickly. So then when I go to spread it and get it nice and smooth, it's already stiffened up. And I find that Swiss meringue frosting or buttercream frosting is a lot softer and it takes a little bit longer for that to happen. Plus you get those nice smooth glossy edges. So you want to start at the bottom of your cake, go around the cake and make your way to the top. Then you want to add some more frosting on top of that, and you're going to use a bench scraper or cake scraper to go around the cake and smoothen it off. Now, if you see any gaps in the frosting as you're going around with the cake scraper, you can just fill it up with some more frosting with a piping bag. Now, as you do go around the cake with the bench scraper, well, you're gonna end up with frosting on your bench scraper. So each time you go once around the cake, you wanna scrape that frosting off the bench scraper with the offset spatula into a large mixing bowl, and then keep going around until it's nice and smooth. Now, it's really important as you are going around that you do hold that bench scraper nice and straight. If you hold it on an angle, you're gonna end up with a cake that looks wonky. So make sure you're holding it nice and straight. Once you've got the edges looking perfect and you're happy with them, we're gonna work on the top. So I go around with my offset spatula. I hold it really nice and level and straight and scrape, spin and scrape. And then I go around with the bench scraper just to get it nice and straight. Once you've done that, you've got your cake pretty much ready to finish off with the decorations. So I am going to add some chocolate frosting around the top of my cake. So I'm going to add some chocolate sauce around the top of my cake and let it drizzle down the sides. Then I'm going to add some funfetti sprinkles down the bottom. And I'm going to kind of get that ombre effect that I do by going heavy down the bottom with the sprinkles and then adding less as I make my way up the top. I've fitted the end of an offset spatula with an open star tip, and I'm going to frost some swirls on top of my cake. Then I'm going to finish it off with some more funfetti rainbow sprinkles and some maraschino cherries on top to make it look nice and classic. This cake is already perfect for a birthday cake or birthday party, but I have loads of birthday recipes if you want to go check out that playlist on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to make this cake for yourself and just see just how delicious it is, I've left a link to the recipe in the description box below for you guys. Click on that and it'll take you to the recipe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all on the next episode of Basic Baking on the Scran Line. Bye.